So this week I wanted to talk about a franchise that's seen quite a turnaround in the last few years. It's one that we've talked about a fair bit on the pod previously when discussing the infamous NFC East. That's the Philadelphia Eagles. So Super Bowl champions as recently as 2018. There was a 3-year stretch where the Patriots reached the Super Bowl 3 years in a row, and the only team to defeat them was the Eagles with Nick Foles and the Philly special play. And since then, about everything that could go wrong has gone wrong for the Philadelphia Eagles and Carson Wentz, their formerly starting quarterback now. And this season, they've got the unusual privilege of picking in the top 10 for a team that's won a Super Bowl so recently. They pick at pick number 6. And this could be a very big franchise-defining pick for the team. And I wanted to pose the question to you guys today. What would you do if you were the Eagles GM? Because you've got a lot of options, and some of them include the pass catchers that we've discussed today. So interested to get any thoughts on, you can trade up, you can trade down, you can target a player, you can target a position, whatever you want. What would you do? So maybe Chris, should I come to you first?
Yeah, I'll tell this one. I think that I know that there's some other people out there, but I think Jamar Chase, if he's there, he has to be the player. I don't know what the Dolphins would do at 3. I know we talked on previous pods about maybe them drafting another quarterback. I don't think any of us were convinced with Tua. But I don't think they would. I think they'll see another year with be a sophomore. I think they'll stick with Tua. They might take Devonta Smith because both of them played at Bama. If they take Jamar Chase, I probably wouldn't go Devonta Smith to the Eagles. I think they've got Jalen Reagor, and I think they're kind of similar, not identical, but similar players. So. But if Jamar Chase is there, I think they go Jamar Chase, give a big body receiver for Jalen Hurts to target.
Cool. Yeah, really interesting. And if Chase isn't there, would you look to go a different way? Or because you obviously said you didn't fancy Smith in that option, would a trade down be an option for you there?
Yeah, I think so. They've probably got, we've just mentioned, a lot of needs in other positions that you probably could get a lot of value for with the receivers and pass catchers that we have mentioned. Obviously, Zach Ertz didn't have a good year at all. Dallas Goedert, obviously the second tight end there, we know he's a good player when he's fit. So do they need Kyle Pitts? Maybe, but I think they would trade down.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting thoughts. Connor, what do you think if you're the Eagles? Are you tempted if a quarterback's there, or
yeah? Well, that seems to be a lot of the chat, doesn't it? Is that they're gonna look at what QB options are going to be around that time, but that's going to be something that's definitely going to play in the Eagles' minds because of where they picked up Wentz when they did, and do they trust the QB slightly lower down the order, or do they want one higher as a first or second round? And is that the risk they're going to play? Because what that creates then is a scenario of you put all your eggs in one basket for if you don't take a QB, you put all your eggs in one basket on Hurts, and then if he performs, you don't get that higher pick for next year, and you're stuck without a QB that you rely on, potentially has a good season, but is it a one-off, or is it the player that they want him to be, and is he the franchise quarterback that they want him to be as well? And it's a risk they'd have to take, and could bear so many different types of fruits, I suppose, as they kind of come back into the draft this time next year. So I think it's interesting for them around a QB in taking one. I think if they do take one, I think they're in a little bit of a tough situation as well, because then you've got 2 quite inexperienced quarterbacks in your team, and what you normally see with a rookie is being able to be supported by someone who's had a little bit more experience. And I suppose in that Eagles team, we've not seen too much experience or too much of a, I suppose, role model figure for Hurts to be able to look up to with the season that Wentz had last year. So it's really interesting around a QB for them. But I suppose there's also the potential they can ignore that completely, roll with this season and trade down and see what they can get for next year to make next year's draft a lot stronger for them. So it's a really interesting situation that they've got themselves in now. And yeah, it'll be exciting to see how it plays out.
Great thoughts there, Con. I think Eagles should consider getting some of your input there. That was some wise words. I like that evaluation. What do you think, Josh? Are you tempted to buy QB or anywhere else that you're looking to go?
Yeah, first, I'd just like to make a note that the award for talking about the Miami Dolphins rather than the Eagles has to go to Chris. But it's such a good point, and Connor explored it. You know, how can we sit here and look at the Dolphins and say, you've got to give up on Tua, and we're not sat here and saying the same thing about the Eagles and Jalen Hurts? I mean, he's a divisive character for sure. A lot of people think he's got a lot of promise in the NFL, and maybe he does. I think Connor hit the nail on the head. You're not going to transform that offense with any position other than quarterback at this point. You can get a wide receiver, chuck it in the mix. You can get another pass catcher. Maybe that makes a difference. They've got a great O-line. Otherwise, maybe Penei Sewell or someone like that comes into play. But I think realistically, you're either sitting there and one of the top quarterbacks falls into your lap at 6. And for me, that isn't Trey Lance. That's one of the other 3. That's Justin Fields, Zach Wilson. Trevor Lawrence isn't going to be there, but in some world where he does, if one of those 3 is there, you've made up your mind, you're going in on them. Great. Happy for you as a franchise. I'm not aggressively targeting them because I think other teams are, and what you have to give up to get them this year doesn't justify it. Unless that quarterback's Trevor Lawrence and you're guaranteed, you know, he's going to be an NFL starter, top 10 talent in the NFL for the next 10 years, which I think Trevor Lawrence is. But if you're in that spot and one of them falls to you, great, take them. If not, trade down and do exactly what Connor said. You know, trade down, guarantee a future pick for next year, maybe get 2 first-round picks in next year's draft and sit there, know where your team actually is and make a decision at that point. But that contradicts the old adage in the NFL, which is win today so you can win tomorrow. You know, it's easy for us to say because we're in the mindset that our job is never on the line, but you've got GMs and coaches whose jobs are on the line. So what would be the best thing for the franchise in the long run isn't necessarily what they will do. So I agree with Chris. I think probably they would take Jamar Chase if he was sat there, or the top wide receiver. But yeah, that's my take on it. I would prefer to trade down or or not aggressively, but land one of the top 3 quarterbacks somehow.
Yeah, I think they're really good points. I think if one of those 3 quarterbacks did, for whatever reason, fall into the Eagles' lap, I think that's a really interesting decision to make. They're probably not a particularly difficult one because, as Connor said, it's not that you don't get many chances to draft in the top 5 or 6. Like, it's hard to win a Super Bowl. It's also hard to be as bad as some of the teams in the NFL, and there are some teams that are already shaping up to be pretty shocking next year. So yeah, it's a rare opportunity to land one of those type of quarterbacks. I think if they're there, I would go for it. It's a new head coach. Remember, he didn't draft Jalen Hurts. I've got no idea what that he thinks of Jalen Hurts at this stage. So it'll be very interesting. I think in some ways it's partly where the draft starts to get really interesting. I think worst case scenario is the top 3 quarterbacks are gone. Jamar Chase is gone. Penei Sewell's gone, and you do got a tough call there, I think. But yeah, really interesting, and let's see what they do.